morning's reading comes from Matthew 20, verses 1 through 16 in the NRSV version. Jesus told a parable to make people think. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon, and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, when the first came, they thought they would receive more. But each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. What do you think?
What do you think? These parables are so puzzling, especially if you try to figure them out. They just don't make sense. And this one in particular is one that has a meaning that's buried in there that for us living in 2015, we don't quite get in the same way as the people Jesus was talking to. So what I'd like to do is look at the pieces of this parable and see if we can't suss out what's there. What is it really talking about? What was Jesus getting at? Remember from the video that parables are not pretty little stories meant to make us feel comfortable. So you're not going to feel comfortable. And you might notice the irony that we sang "Leaning on the Everlasting Arms" when we're talking about being uncomfortable. Think about it. All right, we've got the parable of the workers in the vineyard. And probably you've heard this parable before. It's a familiar story, and it has several characters. The first one is the landowner. We know that he owns the land because he's called the landowner. And we know that he goes to the place where day laborers hang out to hire people to work in his vineyard. We don't know a whole lot more about him except that he feels pretty secure that he's the landowner and he gets to do what he wants to do with the land because he's the landowner. Then we've got the workers. Now, these are folks who have hung out all day long. The folks who went first, got chosen first, worked all day long. Those who got chosen at 5 o'clock had been waiting all day to get work. It's not like they were goofing around. They were trying to get work. And they're very clearly saying, when he says, "Why are you just standing here?" They say, "We've been waiting. No one's hired us." Think about what that might be like to stand on a street corner waiting for someone to hire you, or by someone brought up in Bible study by Home Depot, where people line up to be hired for day labor. Then we have the manager who gets like one phrase in this. The landowner says, call the people here to pay them. That's the manager. Now, think about these different characters. Why does the landowner go to hire the laborers? Why doesn't the manager go hire the laborers? What is the manager doing anyway? Is he just sitting around and then paying people? How are the workers, what kind of work exactly are they doing? They're picking grapes, so it's probably heavy, back-breaking work. Well, as I read different commentaries about this, what this parable really means, the range was amazing. The most common approach to parables is to assume that the leader, the boss, the highest one is God. I don't think that's the case here. One person who was writing about this parable said, the landowner is God, and it shows us how unfair God is. Someone actually wrote that. So you have to be careful when you're reading commentary about parables and look at what the pieces might mean. One thing that we tend not to jump to right away is that Jesus is giving us a picture of what not to do. The landowner is the antithesis of God in this. Number one, the landowner is, in the Roman way, the boss. Hebrew understanding all along has been that the land belongs to God, not to some person who can decide what they do with it. The landowner in this case is very clear, I get to do whatever I want because I'm the landowner. And I think this is not an image of God. It's an antithesis to the image of God. The workers are day laborers, and they're being paid the accepted daily wage. Do you think that's enough to feed their family? What do you think their families are doing? They're working. They're farming in their little plot next to their house. They're cleaning other people's houses, tending sheep. They're doing all kinds of other things in order so that the family can have enough for one day. So we know that the workers are not really being treated well. None of them are. We also know that, as human nature is, the ones who've worked all day think they should get paid more. I think this parable is about income inequality. It's Jesus saying, the rich people lord it over the rest of us, and that's not the way it is in the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is about finding ways that we can share the work. Now, when I first, several weeks ago, dreamed up this title, Sharing the Work, I was thinking it was about all pitching in. But I think it's about opportunity. It's about sharing the work fairly among folks. What does this mean for us? What could this possibly mean in 2015 in Portland, Oregon, as related to income equality? I think one of the big things that we are largely unaware of is the problem of wage theft. And this is a case where people are paid less than the minimum wage. They're not paid for all the hours they've worked, not paying workers at all. Some day laborers get picked up, work all day, and don't get paid. This is wage theft, where their wages are stolen from them. And one of the great things about the kingdom of God breaking in, and I love that language, because the kingdom of God is not what happens when you die. The kingdom of God is when we find ways to treat each other like children of God, rather than taking advantage of each other. And one of these ways of the kingdom breaking in happened a couple weeks ago in Salem at the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon Interfaith Advocacy Day, where I told you a little bit about this last week. We all met many different faiths. We learned about issues for facing the legislature in Oregon. Then we went and spoke to our legislators. And one of the issues was the Fair Wage Recovery Act, asking legislators to build a Fair Wage Recovery Act so that people whose wages have been stolen can get them back, or can be not have their wages stolen in the first place. This is something we can do. We have any number of ways that we can stand up for people who are not being treated fairly. Speaking to your legislator is one of them. And it's something that in the UCC we tend to take for granted that we all do that. But, you know, it's something that's very important that we can take the action we need to take in order to share. And as I said before, I think it's about opportunity. It's about sharing the opportunities for work. There's plenty of work to be done, we know that. There are reasons that the unemployment rate is high, and I can't argue those. But, you know, if we can find ways to share the work and the wages so that everybody has a fair wage, I think that's what this parable is about. It's about being sure that everybody can earn a living. So as you go through this week, I hope you keep thinking about this parable, and there may be another meaning that you find. But it's not going to be the simple one that's on the surface. It's going to be the one that comes from you digging in and understanding what Jesus was talking about when he said the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven is like. It may not be that he's handing you a simple answer. It may be that he's giving you the opposite so that it will strike you that, no, that's not what it's like. It's like something else. Parables are difficult. Reading Scripture is difficult. It takes all of our attention. And I challenge you, as you read Scripture, to dig in and find out what the meaning is underneath.